Here today, we're going to dive into the fueling strategies during summer in particular. It's a unique time, especially for student athletes, where during the summer months, the training tends to ramp up more so because we don't really have the classwork in the classroom to schedule around. So we have more opportunity, so we do more work. But the trade off is as that training load increases, a lot of time the overall energy intake and the food that gets consumed decreases unintentionally. So we're going to dive into why this occurs, how to go about navigating it to be able to make sure that this summer, when you are increasing your training, that you're fueling your body optimally to make sure you're getting the most out of that. And so again, summer is when that fueling quietly starts to fade and drift away. It's a time when the work starts to climb up, especially as summer comes towards the tail end and we start ramping up for the season. We may get 2-a-days in there. The practice sessions are longer, and it's just a lot of work that gets put onto the body, a lot of load that goes into the body. And then on top of that, we have the heat that the body is navigating and battling as well. All of these things are adding extra stressors onto the body that it needs energy to be able to navigate. We need energy to be able to go and perform during the training sessions. We need the energy for the body to be able to keep that temperature down, to be able to manage the heat a little bit better. And with that is in the summer, we don't have the same structure of a schedule as what we do during the school year in particular. We don't have that set wake up time because we don't have that morning class that we need to get to. So it allows for a lot more flexibility, and without the proper structure, a lot of times that's where that drift occurs, to where breakfast gets pushed back a little bit later or maybe not at all, and we skip a snack here or there, and training can be kind of whenever, and we just lose the system, that structure that used to be just automatic. And with all that, that overall intake just gradually decreases and fades without even realizing it. And so that's where that overall decreased intake gradually starts to increase. All of that starts to compound, where in the very beginning, we don't really notice it. That first week of all of this occurring, we feel fine. But then after that starts to add up, after that first week, we're starting the next week at a little bit of a deficit already. That's when in week 2, those legs start to feel a little bit heavier. The recovery starts to not occur as quickly, and we're going into our training sessions already feeling a little sore. Then by week 3, we're slower. Everything that we've been working to train and improve now seems to be going in the opposite direction, where we're not getting as fast on our sprints, where we can't do those repeat sprint abilities as much, where we can't go as long as we used to. It all stems from how everything is starting to compile. It started with that week 1. It's not just a singular day thing, but we want to make sure that we're addressing that to avoid that gradual buildup, because come week 3, we're like, what the heck just changed? Very rarely are we looking that far into the past of being like, oh, this is actually where it started. So those fueling problems that start to build up, we want to make sure that we're addressing in the very beginning. And there's 3 things that really tend to kind of jump up here in the summer that contribute to all this. One is being that hard training sessions, which again, in the summer, we've got that extra time of the longer, more intense training sessions. That impacts your hunger by blunting it, by bringing that down. You don't feel as hungry a lot of times after those intense training sessions. The second one is with that open summer schedule, it removes the structure that we were talking about. You don't have those timed and structured meals where you wake up and have breakfast before you have to be to school. You have the scheduled lunch at school, and then you have that family dinner when you get home from school. The entire schedule is now open, so you don't have that structure anymore. And then the third one is that the fuel that is showing up tends to be at the very end of the day. That one structured meal in the summertime tends to still be dinner when we have that with the family as a whole. But that one meal doesn't account for everything that may have been missed earlier in the day. So each one of these individual things may, in and of themselves, be relatively small, but when they start to compound and all 3 are working together, it adds up real quick. So diving into that first one, first and foremost, your appetite kind of goes silent. It starts to get suppressed. Now, everybody responds differently to different things, but a lot of individuals do experience this, where after the hard sessions, especially in the heat, a lot of times you're not hungry. And that is okay, that's normal. But what can't occur is we can't skip that post training meal. We can't skip that post training snack to replenish that energy. Just because we're not hungry does not mean the body doesn't need that food. And that's where the disconnect tends to occur because it needs to pay that bill to where like you just expended a whole lot of energy and it's gonna come due to where if we don't pay that immediately by consuming some food, we're gonna be paying for it in soreness later. But the body, again, due to the overall intensity of the training session, the heat that's out there, the appetite's just suppressed. So it isn't going to automatically tell you, hey, we need to eat something here. So having that in mind, we need to make sure that we are not skipping that snack because you're doing the hard part. That is the biggest thing. That training session is what sparks all those gains, all the adaptation, all the improvement that you're looking for. We need to make sure that we get the most out of that. And because the body isn't sending the signal, it's not your fault that you're not feeling hungry. It's not your fault that it seems more challenging than perhaps we think it should be to get that food in. This is how your body just naturally responds. This is your body's physiology. This is natural. But understanding what's occurring is the first step in solving the problem. Now that we know that the body's not going to send us those signals, we need to put the system and the structure in place ourselves to ensure that we're still fueling ourselves optimally. This is where having that plan and that structure is really going to come into play. It's where we eat off of that structure and hit those times as opposed to just listening to the body and waiting for it to say, hey, you're hungry, it's time to eat. And so the second part is losing those anchors. This comes to that schedule and putting the plan in place. During the school year, we have that structure. We wake up in the morning, we have breakfast to be able to be at school for our 8 a.m. class. Then at school, it's scheduled, it's structured. We've got a 12 o'clock lunch period. And then after school, after our training, we get home, we've got a 6 p.m. dinner with the family. That's pretty routine. Monday through Friday, it's essentially locked in. Once we get to summer, things start to disappear. We no longer have that school structure to start with the breakfast as well as the scheduled lunch. So naturally, a lot of times we are starting to sleep in. We're going to be training at a random hour. And as a result, because our schedule is just kind of fluid at this point, we're grazing, we're snacking throughout the day as opposed to having those built-in structured meals. And a lot of times if we sleep in too late, we may skip an entire meal. But then because we're not really sitting down and having those substantial meals, sometimes that hunger does start to build up, but it builds up at a different time. So now we're eating a full meal at 4 p.m., resulting in just a hodgepodge and just a confusion of what to do later in the day of, do I still have another dinner? Do I just have a snack? Or then now shoot, it's almost bedtime, but I'm hungry. Do I even eat? It just adds more confusion to the overall system. So we want to make sure that we avoid that drift and we have that schedule and the structure in place. Because what we also want to make sure that we're avoiding is in that scenario where we're sleeping in, training's at a random time, and we're really just prioritizing that dinner at the end, we don't want to just consume all of our calories at the end. We want to prioritize spreading that intake out a little bit better. And the primary reason for that is because we want to ensure that we have the energy available for the training session itself. If we have a 11 o'clock practice or we're going to have an 11 o'clock training session, but we slept into like 10 o'clock and we may grab a granola bar on the way out, we're going into that training session with an empty tank. We're not going to be able to push ourselves as hard. We're not going to be able to have as intensive sprints. We're not going to be able to go as long. And as a result, we're not going to stimulate the body as much for those changes that we're after, for the improvements in speed, power, strength. Because we compromised our training, we're compromising the adaptations. So player A that is waking up, having a structure, they get breakfast in, they're having a pre-training snack, they're having a post-training snack, they're spreading their fuel out to be able to make sure that they still are hitting the total daily needs, but they're doing it in a manner where the energy is still coming in to optimize the training session itself. Player B, just cramming everything in at the end of the day, yeah, on paper, calories in, calories out, The scale may look the exact same, but the changes, the adaptations, and the improvement are going to be vastly different. Player A is going to improve all summer long. Player B is likely going to be incredibly frustrated that they were training super hard, still going and showing up, but didn't see the results. And it's because they felt like they were putting in the effort, but they weren't actually putting in the same training load because they didn't have the energy. They were feeling gassed, they were feeling tired, which, when you push yourself, is what you're going to experience. But they were feeling that earlier than they would have if they had eaten appropriately. So we want to make sure that we spread that intake out to be able to prioritize and optimize the training session itself and the recovery afterwards. By spreading it out, we make sure that the body's recovering optimally to, again, set us up for the next training session the next day. If we don't do all of that, what can start to occur is as we're introducing those extra training sessions, increasing the intensity and the duration, the overall energy expenditure increases. The caloric needs increases to be able to match all of that. And if we are gradually putting ourselves in a position where we sleep through breakfast, we happen to skip a snack and things like that, that decrease in that inadequate consumption starts to build up and it compounds day after day. While one singular day might be like, okay, I ate a little bit less than I needed, not the end of the world. But as we see in the graph here, over 5 days, over 1 week, by the end of that week, we are in a very big deficit. And as a result, your performance is going to be hurt. You're not going to be as strong. You're not going to be as fast. You're not going to be as able to go as long. All of these things are going to decrease the overall improvements in your performance and everything that you're trying to achieve. So we want to make sure that we are fueling ourselves appropriately, that we're getting that fuel in early in the day to be able to strengthen ourselves, get the most out of the training itself, and then fueling ourselves the rest of the day to allow the body to recover and make those adaptations occur. Some signs to look for that may indicate you aren't eating enough are if your progress stalls, even though you're training more, is going to be a big one, and also potentially the most frustrating one. The other ones, your legs are going to feel heavier on the days where they should feel fine. You're struggling to recover as much. You're catching every single bug and sickness that's going around. And sometimes we may just try to say it's allergies. But really, if you have allergies for 3 months, that's not allergies, man. Like, you're catching all the bugs. Your immune system is compromised because it's not fueled appropriately. And then if you happen to just be a little irritable, you got a little bit of a shorter fuse and you're not sleeping as well, the body is trying to communicate and send you all of these signals and warning signs of, hey, we need more food, we need more energy. If you notice any of these things, one of the first things at least to try is just increase your intake. Spread that out a little bit better, increase the total amount, and see how the body responds to it. So this is what a full day would look like. In the morning, making sure that we're having something to eat. We're eating before we train. Even if we're not hungry, have a little something. If you're the type of person who's like, I'm never hungry going into trainings, I don't want to eat before going into trainings, have it be liquids. Go with a sports drink. This is what sports drinks were designed for. Liquids are going to be able to get in and out of the stomach a lot quicker to avoid that upset stomach or that cinder block feeling in the gut. Then make sure we're feeling immediately after that training session to start the recovery process, and also make sure we don't miss a window of opportunity to get calories in, to make sure that we're hitting our total daily needs. So if we have that morning training session, have it be breakfast, have it be a smoothie, sandwich, whatever's easy to grab. You don't need to worry about perfection. We just want to make sure that we're getting something in. And then come midday, ensure you're getting a real lunch. Don't just snack on things throughout the entire day and just kind of like cross your fingers and hope that you're hitting everything you need. Have an actual meal. Make sure you get that in there and have that set time and build that structure into your summer. And then in the evening, have that full dinner plus a bedtime snack. Cap the day with a well-rounded meal. Have a protein-focused snack before bed to optimize that recovery piece to ensure that when you wake up in the morning, you did everything you can to feel as fresh as you can, to go out and train as hard as you can and get the most out of that. These are the things that are going to be able to help have that progress in the overall performance gradually continue to improve. And with all this, we just want to make sure that we're focusing incrementally. You don't need to do every single thing right out of the gate, and you also don't need to be overly critical and analytical about everything. Focus on just setting 2 meals perhaps at the exact same time every day. Start to give the structure back. Everything that we had in the school year, try to implement that here in the summer. Then make sure that you just have the food available. Set up the environment. Ensure that you've got some extra snacks in your bag, in the fridge. Have the environment be conducive to what you're needing. Ensure that the food items are there. Ensure that you're setting yourself up to be able to easily get whatever it is that the body needs. And so lock one of these things in. Don't try to implement everything all at once. Pick one thing, start with that one thing, lock it in, make it a habit, and then progress to the next one. And that's the name of the game right here. So here are just 3 examples of some of the things that we were discussing here today. Pick one to get a start on. Whether it be anchoring your 2 meals, set those times and hold yourself to that. Perhaps it's instead just making sure that you're fueling within the hour after training, that you start that recovery process immediately, and that we take advantage of that opportunity to get some of the extra energy in. Or perhaps we focus on bedtime, making sure that we're getting a bedtime snack in to maximize the recovery when we are sleeping, and also using that as the opportunity to be able to take advantage of ensuring we're getting adequate calories throughout the entire day to set ourselves up for the next day to get the most out of that day's training session. And then if you happen to notice any of those big signs that we were talking about earlier, heavier legs, the progress isn't really going, that's your cue to make sure that you're adding fuel. So here's some common questions that have popped up for me with the clients I've been working with on this type of topic. If I'm not hungry, doesn't that mean I don't need to eat? Very, very common misconception. And while a lot of times, yes, we do want to have that intuition, we do want to be able to listen to our body, but at times the body isn't going to send us the signals that it's needing because there's something else going on mixing up and just kind of blocking that signal. And the hunger is one of them, especially in this situation where during the summer it's hot, there's intense and longer training sessions. Those 2 things in particular do blunt the overall appetite and the hunger cues. So just because we're not hungry, you just expended a ton of calories and energy during the training session itself. Your body needs that. You need to replenish that. So just because the appetite's not there doesn't mean you don't need it. Don't fall into that trap. This is why setting a structure and a schedule is going to be incredibly beneficial. Eat to that schedule, not necessarily to the hunger. Then I eat a big dinner. Isn't that enough? 9 times out of 10, no. It certainly does help, but we want to make sure that we're spreading that intake out, both to be able to ensure that if we have an earlier training session, we are fueling ourselves for that we're going into the training session with a full tank to get the most out of that, but also making sure that we're just taking advantage of the opportunities to ensure we're eating enough throughout the entire day. If we try to rely solely on one meal the entire day, a lot of times our stomach is going to be the limiting factor to where we just can't eat enough in one meal to replace everything that we need for the entire day. Unless you're Joey Chestnut in the hot dog eating contest type of a thing, you're likely not going to pull that off. And if you do, you're probably going to feel uncomfortable with it. So while the big dinner is good, it can be helpful, it's not going to be the end all be all solution to everything. So make sure you're spreading it out. Make sure that you're optimizing those opportunities when you have them. Then, will eating more in summer make me less lean? This comes back to a little bit of the fear of the body composition aspect of things where, well, if I eat too much, am I going to gain weight? Am I going to gain fat type of a thing? You're not. If anything, eating more is going to make you more lean, especially in kind of the situations and scenarios that we've been discussing here today. Because by eating more, the biggest thing that you're going to achieve is you're going to be able to now go into your training sessions with more energy to push yourself harder. And the more that you push yourself in the training session itself to be able to get that extra rep, get that extra set, run a little bit further, that's going to spark those adaptations to begin to build and thus result in those improvements even more. But to get those improvements, you also need to provide your body the building blocks and the energy to recover, to repair, to build itself. Those are energy demanding processes as well. And so by eating more, we make sure we're able to train a little bit harder, recover better, and overall build our muscle better. That's going to result in a whole lot better performance down the road. And as a result, improve body composition because we're helping to expend a little bit more energy because we're improving our energy availability during the training session itself. And then we're building our muscle at the end. It's going to aid that body composition piece. So don't fall into that trap of being fearful of eating a little bit more because at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, most individuals are going to benefit by eating more as opposed to being hurt by eating more.